Famous actor found dead of an apparent drug overdose, but now questions over who could be held responsible for the death of Philip Seymour Hoffman. 4 people were arrested last night in New York City. Police say the suspects may have supplied the drugs that killed the Oscar-winning actor. Now, we couldn't find any evidence in New York of drug dealers being held liable for the death of a customer. In fact, some New York courts have found that under state law, drug dealers cannot be held liable for a customer's death. But nationally, the trend is very different. States are handing down harsher convictions for heroin dealers specifically. So could this be a landmark case? Let's bring in our legal panel. A.R.M is former prosecutor, and she's joining us now. And Phil Snyder, criminal defense attorney. Great to have you both. Phil, what do you think about this? Do you think that this could happen if these drug dealers were tied to Philip Seymour Hoffman? Phil, could they be charged with something like manslaughter, third-degree murder, homicide?
What? Well, I don't think it's going to happen in this case because New York, unlike the neighboring state, Pennsylvania, has specifically said in the courts that drug dealers are not responsible for the death of one of its consumers. Now, if this case had something unique about it, that might be able to change the precedent. But in this case, the synthetic material that normally is the linchpin for these cases was not even found in the initial report. So in this particular case, I do not think that they will be filing any enhanced charges such as manslaughter, although I do think they will file simple possession, possibly sale, and maybe even trafficking of the heroin.
Anna, do you agree? Disagree?
Not necessarily. I think that it's still an ongoing investigation, so a lot has to be revealed to reflect what was exactly found in these alleged drug dealers' houses and whether there's a causal link with what was found in Philip Seymour Hoffman's apartment. Now, keep in mind, drug-induced homicides, Jenna, are typically very difficult to prove because of causation. But also, a prosecutor's job is not to cherry-pick the easy cases and to run away from the difficult cases. It's to seek justice, and to seek justice based upon the evidence and what they can prove. So I think what's really going to be telling is what we can find out about this ongoing investigation and what these alleged 4 drug dealers knew about Philip Seymour Hoffman's condition and whether it amounted to criminal negligence.
You bring up a lot of great points there, Anna. While you were speaking, we actually have some news from the New York City chief medical examiner who says that Philip Seymour Hoffman's cause of death is pending further studies, which is interesting because obviously everyone right away said this is drug overdose. Certainly it looks like that according to what we know, Phil. But to Anna's point, when we look at causation in this, a drug dealer may supply the drugs to somebody, right? But they don't make that person take it. So when you're looking at some of these other cases, like you mentioned it in Pennsylvania and other cases around the country, how are prosecutors making that leap, saying that the drug dealer is responsible for somebody else's actions?
Well, it's a very difficult leap because there's a caveat emptor. You're buying heroin. You have to assume that, there's a danger element involved. From what I've read, the linchpin really is the additional drugs, the synthetic materials that are included by the drug dealer that apparently the consumer may or may not know they're ingesting. So what the prosecution in those cases say is, Mr. Consumer bought heroin, but he didn't know the synthetic material that has 100 times the potency was included in the drug. Now, again, in this case, from what has been coming out so far, that material has not even been found, and Philip Seymour Hoffman's apartment had multiple drugs, including cocaine,